The crystalline spires of the Krellick's war chamber caught the light of 3 setting suns, casting prismatic shadows across the assembled council members. Elder Vextal's ceremonial staff struck the polished floor with a resonance that silenced even the most vocal warhawks. His aged fingers, roughened by centuries of military service, trembled against the ancient metal. "You are all making a mistake that will echo through generations," he said, his voice carrying the weight of 200 years of strategic command. The younger council members exchanged dismissive glances, their scaled crests rising in barely concealed irritation. Supreme Commander Zixtal leaned forward, his ceremonial armor glinting. "Elder, with all due respect, the assessment is complete. The species-designated human remains confined to a single world. Their most advanced vessels can barely reach their own satellite." Vextal activated the chamber's holographic display with a gesture. The image of Earth, blue and serene, rotated before them. "Look closer," he urged, manipulating the display to zoom in on various locations. "What do you see?" "Primitive dwellings, combustion engines, nuclear fission plants," General Kerr listed, her voice dripping with disdain. "Their most advanced weapons still rely on chemical propellants." The elder's laugh held no humor. "I see a species that refuses to accept limitation." He brought up a new image, a human child, recorded by one of their observation drones. "Watch this. It's from their region designated as Minnesota." The council watched as the small human used increasingly complex tools to retrieve a toy trapped behind a heating unit. First a stick, then a series of connected devices, finally a makeshift pulley system constructed from household items. 6 hours, Vextal said softly. 6 hours for a toy of minimal value. The child's parent offered 3 replacement units. All were refused. Supreme Commander Zixtal waved a dismissive hand. "You're showing us the persistence of a juvenile. I'm showing you their fundamental nature." Vextal's crest flattened in frustration. Humans don't just solve problems. They become obsessed with solving them their way. They turned their entire civilization's scientific might towards splitting atoms because someone said it was impossible. He switched the display to historical footage. They fought wars across every inch of their planet, developed tactics for every terrain. Desert warfare, Arctic combat, urban congestion, oceanic battles. They've mastered them all. Not because they had to, but because they refused to let any environment defeat them. General Kerr rose, her patience visibly thinning. "Elder, their longest conflicts lasted mere decades. Our empire has waged successful campaigns for centuries. And that's precisely why you don't understand." Vextal's staff struck the floor again. "Humans don't wage war like we do. They don't fight until victory or defeat. They fight until they've achieved their objective, no matter how long it takes. They hold grudges across generations. They teach their offspring to remember ancient slights." The display shifted again, showing human historical records. They built monuments to battles fought thousands of years ago. They maintained them, not to celebrate victory, but to remember their dead, to fuel their resolve. Admiral Zix stepped closer to the display, something in his posture suggesting he alone might be taking Vextal's warning seriously. "You believe they would pursue us to the ends of the galaxy." Vextal's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I've watched them for 50 years. They're not like other races we've conquered. They don't submit to superior force. It only makes them more determined. Every defeat teaches them. Every setback fuels them." He placed a data crystal on the central podium. "My complete analysis. Centuries of their conflicts, their responses to disaster, their methods of adaptation. I resign my position, effective immediately. I won't be part of this mistake." The council erupted in outraged whispers. Supreme Commander Zixtal raised his voice above the chaos. "You would end 2 centuries of service over one primitive species." Vextal paused at the chamber's threshold, his aged frame silhouetted against the dying sunlight. "They have a saying on Earth: don't poke the bear. It refers to a large predator on their world. But humans, he turned, meeting each council member's gaze. Humans are worse. That bear will only chase you until it's tired or satisfied. Humans, they will hunt you forever. The doors sealed behind him with a final hiss, leaving the council in uncomfortable silence. After a moment, General Kerr reached for the data crystal. Should we review his analysis? Admiral Zix asked. Why waste the time? Supreme Commander Zixtal gestured, and the image of Earth disappeared from the display. Launch the attack at dawn. Let's show this elder how his determined humans handle real warfare. The crystal sat untouched, its contents unread, as the council began planning humanity's subjugation. None of them noticed Admiral Zix slipping a copy into his personal data store. Just in case, Captain Amanda Stevens had seen New York's skyline 1,000 times, but never like this. The massive shapes of Krellick's warships cast moving shadows across Manhattan, their hulls reflecting the morning sun like burnished copper. Her hands tightened on the railing of the precinct's roof as her radio crackled with increasingly desperate reports. This is not a drill, she muttered into her phone, watching civilians point smartphones skyward. Mom, get everyone into the basement. Now. The first plasma barrage hit Times Square at 9:47 a.m. Eastern Time. The sound came first, a high-pitched whine that made dogs howl across the city, followed by blinding purple light. Amanda expected panic, chaos, a breakdown of civil order. Instead, she watched humanity's stubborn resilience in action. Construction workers turned their cranes into evacuation platforms, lifting people from lower buildings to higher ground as the plasma spread. Teenage cafe workers set up impromptu medical stations, using their phones to coordinate supplies. Wall Street traders, covered in dust, directed crowds toward subway stations using their weird hand signals. Captain, Officer Rodriguez burst onto the roof. You need to see this. In the precinct's command center, screens showed similar scenes playing out worldwide. Paris, Tokyo, London, Moscow. Each city responding differently, yet with the same underlying determination. They hit the Pentagon 10 minutes ago, Rodriguez reported, his tablet displaying footage of the damage. But look at this. The video showed teenagers on skateboards zipping through debris-choked streets, delivering medical supplies. Senior citizens organizing shelter networks through church groups. Engineers from Boeing working with garage mechanics to modify civilian vehicles. Amanda's radio squawked. This is Major Reynolds, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Any police captains on this channel? Stevens here, NYPD 14th Precinct. Captain, I need your people to coordinate with civilian construction crews. We've got an idea, but it's crazy enough to need New York's finest to pull it off. Before she could respond, a deafening roar filled the air. Amanda rushed back to the roof, expecting more destruction. Instead, she watched in awe as commercial satellites began raining from the sky, their orbits deliberately altered to become kinetic weapons against the Krellick's fleet. NASA's final gift, Rodriguez said, joining her. They sacrificed our global communications to give us a fighting chance. In orbit, Krellick's commander Ixel faced an unprecedented situation. Multiple impacts. His tactical officer reported, these primitives are using their own infrastructure as weapons. Impossible. Ixel muttered, watching another satellite tear through his support craft's shields. The damage to their civilization. Commander, the sensor operator's voice cracked. Ground forces report heavy resistance in Sector 4. The humans are. They're using modified industrial equipment as weapons. In Colorado, Major Jack Reynolds watched his hastily assembled team guide modified drilling rigs into position. The Krellicks had established their ground base on solid granite, assuming Earth's primitive technology couldn't threaten them underground. They hadn't counted on humanity's century of experience boring through mountain ranges. Remember, Reynolds told his operators, a mix of military engineers and civilian contractors, we don't need to breach their base, just to stabilize the foundation. He keyed his radio. All units, commence Operation Anthill. Industrial drills, repurposed with diamond-tipped bits meant for ocean mining, vid into the earth. The Krillix base's shields protected against attacks from above, but did nothing to stop the ground beneath them from being transformed into a honeycomb of instability. Back in New York, Amanda organized her officers to support the civilian response. She watched a group of Broadway stagehands using theatrical smoke machines to provide cover for evacuees. Restaurant workers transformed their kitchens into aid stations. Even the city's notorious street gangs had declared a truce, turning their intimate knowledge of urban geography toward resistance. Captain Rodriguez called out, "Major Reynolds reports success in Colorado. 1 alien base down." Amanda nodded, allowing herself a grim smile as she watched more satellites streak across the sky like falling stars. "Get me in touch with every construction crew in Manhattan. If they can do it in Colorado, we can do it here." Her radio crackled again. This time, it was a civilian frequency. Someone had managed to hack into the Krillix communication network. The alien words were being translated in real time by linguistics professors working with computer science students. The message was clear. The Krillix were calling for reinforcements. They had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that turned everything, even their own satellites, into weapons of resistance. "They think this is chaos," Amanda said, watching her city adapt and fight back. "They don't understand. This is New York. This is humanity. We're just getting started." The Arizona summer heat rippled across the repurposed airplane hangar, but Dr. Emily Parker barely noticed. She was too focused on the holographic display hovering above the captured Krillix control panel, its alien symbols pulsing with an otherworldly light. Around her, a mix of military personnel and civilian scientists worked in focused silence, broken only by the hum of cooling fans and muttered observations. "Try it again," she called to her assistant. This time, hook the EEG directly to the neural interface. 6 months into the war, and humanity had already learned more about advanced technology than the Krillix thought possible. It wasn't just about understanding their weapons. It was about understanding how they thought. "Doctor." Lieutenant Sarah Reynolds rushed into the lab, her tablet displaying new sensor readings. The latest batch of test subjects showed the same anomaly. Human brainwave patterns are accessing systems the Krillix can't. Emily nodded, unsurprised. Their technology is built for their psychology. They think linearly, hierarchically. Humans. She gestured to the latest test results. "We think in metaphors, in connections. We see patterns they don't." Across the room, a captured Krillix navigation system suddenly lit up, responding to the brainwaves of a former video game designer. The alien symbols rearranged themselves, adapting to human neural architecture. "Record everything," Emily ordered, watching as the system's efficiency rating climbed higher than anything in the captured Krillix technical manuals. They built their interfaces for users who think like computers. We're teaching them to think like dreams. 2,000 miles away, Special Forces operator Marcus Thompson crouched in the shadows of a ruined shopping mall, watching his team modify their weapons. Standard-issue shotguns had been retrofitted with salvaged Krillix power cells, creating hybrid weapons that combined human versatility with alien firepower. "Remember," he whispered into his comm, "their shields are calibrated for energy weapons or ballistics. They never considered we use both simultaneously." His team moved through the darkness, their modified weapons humming with borrowed power. The Krillix supply base ahead of them glowed with purple energy, its guards confident in their technological superiority. They never saw the attack coming. The first sign something was wrong came when their shields flickered, confused by the hybrid ammunition. Regular buckshot, charged with Krillix energy cells, created an effect their defenses couldn't categorize. By the time their computers decided whether to defend against kinetic or energy weapons, Thompson's team was already inside. "Central Command, this is Ghost Walker 1. Thompson reported 15 minutes later, standing in the captured base's control room. Package secured. You're not going to believe what we found here. In orbit, the Krelix War Council received the report with growing concern. Supreme Commander Zixel's crest flattened against his skull as he read the details. Impossible, he muttered. They're combining our technology with their primitive weapons in ways that shouldn't work. Admiral Zix, who had watched Vextel's warning data crystal in secret, wasn't surprised. They're not just copying our technology, he observed. They're reimagining it. The research base in their Arizona region reports humans are interfacing with our systems more effectively than our own people. A junior officer interrupted with another urgent report. Commander, the humans in Sector 7 have modified their ground vehicles with our shield technology. They're using them as mobile cover for civilian evacuations. Zixtel turned to his tactical display, watching the patterns of human resistance shift and evolve. Every defeat taught them. Every captured piece of technology became something new in their hands. Back in Arizona, Emily's team made another breakthrough. A former music teacher had discovered that Krelix security systems responded to rhythmic patterns in brainwaves. They were now testing a theory that human music could be used to generate interference fields. It's beautiful, in a way, Emily told Lieutenant Reynolds as they watched jazz musicians improvise with alien technology. They built everything to be perfect, predictable. They never considered that chaos and creativity could be an advantage. Her tablet chimed with a message from Thompson's team. The captured supply base had yielded a treasure trove. Krelix medical technology. Emily's tired eyes lit up with new possibilities. Get me in touch with every hospital researcher you can find, she ordered. If we can interface with their weapons, imagine what we can do with their healing technology. As the sun set over the desert facility, Emily watched her team continue their work. The Krelix had expected to find primitives playing with technology they couldn't understand. Instead, they found a species that didn't just adapt to new technology. They transformed it into something greater. 6 months, she murmured, reviewing their progress. Let's see what we can do in 6 more. Lieutenant Jessica Hayes settled into the captured Krelix fighter's neural interface chair, her fingers drumming a familiar rhythm on the crystalline controls. 2 years ago, she'd been playing space combat simulators in her apartment. Now she was flying the real thing. Neural sync established, the technician announced. You're showing higher compatibility than any previous pilot. Jessica grinned. 15 years of gaming does pay off. Mom. She closed her eyes, feeling the ship's systems integrate with her consciousness. It's just like Desktop Squadron, except the graphics are better. The Krelix ship responded to her thoughts with an eagerness that surprised even the engineers monitoring the test. Where Krelix pilots relied on rigid protocols and predetermined maneuver sets, Jessica's neural patterns introduced something new: improvisation. Beginning combat simulation, the control room announced. Multiple hostile contacts incoming. Jessica's hands danced across the controls as she executed a corkscrew maneuver she perfected in virtual reality. The ship's computer attempted to override what it considered impossible movements, but the modified neural interface allowed her human intuition to take precedence. In the observation deck, retired NASCAR mechanic Tyler Cooper watched with professional appreciation. "Look at those thrust vectoring patterns," he commented to Colonel David Martinez. "The aliens never figured out how to drift in zero gravity." Tyler's contributions to the war effort had been revolutionary. His decades of making race cars squeeze out every fraction of additional performance had translated perfectly to alien propulsion systems. The Krelix built their engines to be perfect and predictable. Tyler made them sing. "How's the new engine configuration performing?" Martins asked, watching Jessica's fighter execute maneuvers that would have made the original Krelix engineers have nervous breakdowns. 40% efficiency increase, Tyler grinned. Turns out they never considered using atmospheric friction to supplement their power cycles. Too messy for their taste. But any NASCAR pit crew could tell you, sometimes you gotta get dirty to go fast. Colonel Martinez nodded, his attention split between the flight test and the tactical simulations running on his tablet. As commander of the newly formed Unconventional Warfare Division, his job was to make the Krillix face something they'd never encountered: human creativity. "Sir," his aide interrupted, "we're receiving new intel from the captured Krillix tactical database. Their combat computers are still unable to predict our attack patterns." "Of course they can't," Martinez smiled. "They're looking for military logic. We're giving them science fiction." The aide looked confused, so Martinez expanded. "Half our tactical database comes from entertainment. Battlestar Galactica, The Expanse, Star Wars. Their computers are trying to find historical precedent for maneuvers that, until now, only existed in human imagination." In orbit, a Krillix tactical officer stared in bewilderment at his display. "Commander, the human ships are executing attack patterns that defy all known combat doctrine." The Krillix fleet commander watched as Earth's hybrid ships, human-modified alien technology, danced through space in ways his training had never prepared him for. One human pilot had somehow turned their fighter's shield frequency into a weapon, using it to disrupt nearby ship systems. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Unknown, Commander. They're neural patterns when interfacing with our technology. They're chaotic, unpredictable. They're not just using our ships, they're redefining what our ships can do." Back in the test chamber, Jessica completed her simulation, run with a maneuver that combined an old Russian Air Force tactic with something she'd learned fighting the final boss in Desktop Squadron. "Time to kill on all targets, 43 seconds, the computer announced. New record. Jessica opened her eyes, her mind still humming with the ship's neural connection. Ready for the real thing. Colonel Martinez checked his tactical display one last time. The combined fleet of modified Krillix ships and hybrid human vessels was assembled in high orbit. Every pilot had been chosen for their ability to think creatively, to do the unexpected. "Launch Operation Looking Glass," he ordered. Across Earth's orbit, hundreds of ships powered up. Each one represented a fusion of human intuition and alien technology, piloted by gamers, racing drivers, stunt pilots, people who saw the impossible as a challenge rather than a barrier. The Krillix were about to learn that giving humans access to advanced technology hadn't made them more predictable. It had just given them new ways to be unprecedented. "All ships, you are cleared for launch," Martinez announced. "Let's show them how humanity fights when we reach for the stars." The Krillix patrol fleet never saw Admiral Rebecca Anderson's ships coming. One moment, the sensor grid showed empty space. The next, human vessels materialized from the darkness between stars, their hybrid drives running silent. "Like hiding in the hollows," Rebecca whispered, remembering childhood games of hide and seek in Appalachian caves. The same principles that had once concealed her from seeking children now hid her fleet from alien sensors. "Multiple targets acquired," her tactical officer reported. "The Krillix still haven't adapted their detection systems to account for our stealth modifications." Rebecca smiled. 5 years into the war, and humanity had transformed space combat into something the Krillix barely recognized. Their rigid doctrine of overwhelming force had no answer for ships that fought like ghost stories. "Launch surveillance drones," she ordered. "Let's see what our friends are protecting out here." The drones, modified with technology reverse-engineered from captured Krillix scouts, scattered across the system. Their design incorporated lessons learned from Earth's deep-sea exploration vessels, equipment built to operate in the dark, crushing void. "Admiral," her communications officer interrupted, "we're picking up transmissions from the surface of the second planet. It's not Krillix." On her command display, Rebecca watched video feeds from a civilization she'd never seen before. Humanoid aliens, clearly a subject race of the Krillix Empire, were gathering in their cities, watching something on public view screens. "Analysis confirms," her intelligence officer reported. "They're watching our broadcasts, the ones we've been seeding across Krillix space." Rebecca remembered when communications officer Michael O'Brien had first proposed the idea. Every revolution in human history spread through stories, he'd said. Why should Galactic rebellion be any different? Now those stories, carefully selected tales of human resistance, of overthrown oppressors, of liberty won against impossible odds, were bearing fruit. Admiral Tactical's voice carried new urgency. Krelix warships are moving to surround the planet. They're charging weapons. Not on my watch, Rebecca growled. All ships, execute Battle Plan Harriet. Named after Harriet Tubman, the plan was designed to protect rebelling populations from Krelix retaliation. Her fleet emerged from stealth like avenging angels, their hybrid weapons, combinations of human ingenuity and Krelix technology, tearing through the surprised Krelix formation. Years of fighting humans had taught the Krelix to fear Earth's military innovations, but they still hadn't learned to expect them everywhere. Message from the surface. Communications reported. They're thanking us, calling us the Phantom Guardians. In his cell aboard the Krelix flagship, captured communications officer Michael O'Brien smiled as his interrogators played yet another intercepted broadcast. The aliens hadn't tortured him. They were too civilized for that. Instead, they kept asking him to explain why their subject races were suddenly talking about something called Independence Day. You still don't understand, he told his captors. Humans didn't just master your technology. We've spent our entire history telling stories about overthrowing powerful empires. Now we're sharing those stories with every species you've subjugated. The Krelix intelligence officer's crest flattened in frustration. Stories cannot defeat an empire. Michael's grin widened. Then you've never read human history. Every revolution starts with a story about hope. Back in the battle, Rebecca's fleet had cleared the Krelix forces from the system. On the planet below, the population was already dismantling symbols of Krelix authority. Admiral, her intelligence officer called out. We're detecting similar uprising patterns in 6 nearby systems. The Krelix are trying to maintain control, but they've never faced an enemy that fights with inspiration as well as weapons, Rebecca finished. She opened a channel to the rebel planet below. This is Admiral Anderson of the Human Ghost Fleet. We bring you greetings from Earth and an offer of alliance. The response came immediately, in a dozen different alien languages, all carrying the same message. We stand with Earth. In the darkness between stars, more human ships slipped through the void, carrying with them the most powerful weapons humanity had ever wielded. Not just advanced technology, but the accumulated stories of every revolution, every successful resistance, every victory of the determined over the mighty. The Krelix had thought giving humans access to advanced technology would make them predictable. Instead, it had given them new ways to be what they'd always been: storytellers, revolutionaries, and protectors of the oppressed. Set course for the next system, Rebecca ordered. Let's give them another story to tell. Professor James Wilson stood before the holographic transmitter in the United Earth Council chamber, his weathered hands steady despite the gravity of the moment. The Krelix Senate's peace offer hovered in the air before him, its ornate diplomatic seals glowing with artificial importance. 10 years of war had turned the high school history teacher into something else, a voice for humanity's resolve. The same passion that once taught teenagers about ancient civilizations now addressed the gathered representatives of Earth's United Nations. They offer us peace, he began, his voice carrying to billions of viewers across Earth and beyond. They offer us a seat on their council. They offer us status among their elite. His eyes swept the chamber, meeting the gazes of leaders who'd learned to trust his perspective. They offer us everything except the one thing we now know we must demand. The Krelix observers shifted uncomfortably. Their diplomatic team hadn't expected this response to their generous terms. When they first attacked Earth, we were divided, James continued. Nations squabbled over resources. Old rivalries festered. We were, by their assessment, easy prey. He gestured to the battle footage playing behind him. Earth's cities burning, millions displaced. They thought they would break us. Instead, they forged us. In orbit, aboard the Krelix diplomatic vessel, Supreme Commander Zixtal watched with growing concern. Why do they refuse? We're offering them power, influence, technology. Admiral Zix, now his senior advisor, said nothing. He merely loaded Vextal's warning crystal into the ship's database, letting its predictions play out in real time. Back in the council chamber, James activated a different hologram, a three-dimensional map of known space. For millennia, humanity fought itself. We waged wars over territory, resources, ideology. But in doing so, we learned something the Krelix never understood: the true cost of conflict. The map highlighted dozens of worlds where human fleets had helped local populations overthrow Krelix control. Every species you enslaved, every civilization you peacefully absorbed into your empire. They're watching now. They're learning what we've known since we first picked up stones as weapons. Oppression carries a price. The Krelix diplomatic chief rose to speak, but James continued, his voice carrying the weight of human history. You offered us peace because you think we're tired of fighting. You're wrong. We're tired of watching others suffer as we once suffered. You gave us the stars, united us, and showed us a galaxy filled with beings who need what humanity has always had: the will to resist. In orbital stations across Earth, hybrid fleets of human and alien technology prepared for launch. Each ship carried crews from multiple species, former Krelix subjects who'd learned Earth's tactics, combined with human operators who'd mastered alien technology. Our terms are simple, James declared. The complete dissolution of the Krelix Empire, freedom for all subject races, the establishment of a galactic council where all species have equal voice. He paused, letting the magnitude sink in. We don't want a seat at your table. We want to build a new table entirely. The Krelix diplomats erupted in protest. This wasn't just a rejection of their peace offer. It was a demand for the end of their entire civilization. You would destroy thousands of years of stability. The Krelix chief demanded. Replace our order with chaos. James smiled, the same smile he'd once used to encourage struggling students. We'd replace control with choice, submission with cooperation, your empire with something better. He looked directly into the transmission feed, knowing his words would reach every corner of Krelix space. You thought giving us access to advanced technology would make us forget who we are. Instead, it gave us the means to become who we were always meant to be: protectors of the weak, champions of the oppressed. In their orbital flagship, Supreme Commander Zixtal finally accessed Vextal's data crystal, watching in growing horror as humanity's actions matched the Elder's predictions with perfect accuracy. They're not just fighting us anymore, Admiral Zix observed quietly. They're fighting for something bigger than themselves. And that, Commander, is why we've already lost. James's final words echoed across the galaxy. You offered us peace. We offer the galaxy freedom. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, but its impact resonated through space. On 1,000 worlds, former Krelix subjects looked to Earth, not as primitives who'd mastered advanced technology, but as teachers who remembered every lesson warfare had taught them, especially the most important one. The true victory isn't in conquering your enemy, but in making sure no one else suffers as you did. Commander Olivia Nash watched the swirling energies of her flagship's quantum core through armored windows. 15 years of human innovation had transformed Krelix technology into something its creators no longer recognized. The contained star at the ship's heart pulsed with power that the aliens had deemed impossible to harness. All battle groups report ready, her executive officer announced. The Allied fleet is in position. The combined armada filled the void around her, ships crewed by humans and liberated alien species, each vessel a testament to what cooperation could achieve. Former Krelix subject races had contributed their own innovations to humanity's modifications, creating something entirely new. Open fleet-wide communications, Olivia ordered. All ships, this is Commander Nash. In 15 minutes, we begin our assault on the Krelix homeworld. They believe their fortress systems are impregnable. They're about to learn what humanity does to impregnable walls. The plan was audacious, combining human tactical doctrine with technology the Krillix never imagined their equipment could support. Each ship's quantum core had been modified using principles discovered by a graduate student who'd been studying black holes before the invasion. First wave, commence Operation Falling Star, Olivia commanded. Across the fleet, modified Krillix drives engage. The aliens had designed their engines to be perfect and predictable. Humanity had taught them to dance with chaos. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper monitored the quantum signatures from his station. Enemy fleet holding position behind their defensive line. There, wait. His eyes widened. Multiple signatures. They're attempting a long-range jump. Location. Olivia demanded, though she already knew the answer. Earth, Ryan confirmed. They're making one final strike at our homeworld. Olivia allowed herself a grim smile. Send the signal to General Ramirez. Operation Looking Glass is in effect. On Earth, General Maria Ramirez stood in the Combined Defense Command Center, watching as her forces took position. The Krillix thought they were about to launch a surprise attack. They didn't realize they were jumping into a trap 15 years in the making. All defense grids powered, her tactical officer reported. Quantum resonance fields are ready. The Krillix fleet appeared in Earth orbit, their weapons charging. Supreme Commander Zixtal himself led the attack, believing he could force humanity to accept peace by threatening their homeworld one final time. Maximum power to forward batteries, he ordered. Show these humans the consequence of their... His words cut off as his ship's quantum core suddenly synchronized with Earth's defense grid. Human scientists had spent years studying the Krillix power signature, learning to manipulate it at the subatomic level. By all the stars, Zixtal whispered as his fleet's power systems came under Earth's control. What have they done? Back at the Krillix homeworld, Olivia's fleet engaged the defensive installations. The fortress systems that had protected the Krillix capital for centuries faced weapons they were never designed to counter, hybrid technology that combined human inspiration with alien power. Their outer defenses are adapting, Ryan reported, but not fast enough. Our attack patterns are too unpredictable for their computers to calculate. Olivia watched as 15 years of preparation came to fruition. The Krillix had built their defenses assuming enemies would think like they did. Logically, predictably, by the book. Instead, they faced ships commanded by humans who'd learned to fight in 3 dimensions, who treated space like an ocean of possibilities. All ships, execute attack pattern Magellan, she ordered, naming the maneuver after another human explorer who'd changed how people saw the world. The fleet moved like a living thing, each ship supporting the others in ways Krillix tactical doctrine said were impossible. Former subject races had added their own techniques to the assault, turning the attack into a symphony of cooperative warfare. On her command screen, Olivia received confirmation from Earth. General Ramirez had succeeded. The Krillix strike force was contained, their own power systems turned against them. Send the final message, Olivia ordered. Let them see what their choices have brought them. Across every frequency, in every language of the galaxy, Earth's message played. Not demands for surrender or threats of destruction, but an offer. Join us in building something better than empire. The Krillix homeworld's defenses, the product of millennia of development, lasted less than 6 hours against humanity's combined fleet. Not because Earth's ships were more powerful, but because humans had learned to use that power in ways the Krillix could never predict. Incoming transmission, Ryan announced. It's from the Krillix Senate. They're asking for terms. Olivia nodded. Send the response we prepared. The same terms we offered before. Freedom for all, or nothing. The stars watched silently as an empire born of conquest faced something stronger than power, the combined will of species who'd learned humanity's greatest lesson. The strongest force in the universe isn't technology, but the determination to use it wisely. The crystalline spires of the Terran Protective Coalition headquarters caught the morning light of 3 suns, casting rainbow patterns across Ambassador Thomas Mitchell's desk. 20 years after the first Kralik ship darkened Earth's skies, humanity had transformed from a single-planet species into the guardians of galactic peace. Another developing civilization detected, his aide reported, displaying a hologram of a distant solar system. Pre-spaceflight technology level, showing promising signs of unity. Thomas studied the readings from the monitoring station, once used by the Kraliks to identify conquest targets, now repurposed to protect emerging species. Add them to the watch list. Make sure the cloaked satellites maintain distance. We observe, we protect, but we don't interfere. In the Grand Assembly Hall below, representatives from 50 species gathered for the annual remembrance ceremony. Some had been Kralik subjects, others were newly discovered civilizations that had evolved without imperial interference. All of them were here because humanity had learned from its own history. Retired Admiral Rebecca Anderson stood at the podium, her once dark hair now streaked with silver. Beside her, a young Nexari child, one of the species discovered after the war, listened intently. "Why do humans spend so much effort protecting others?" the child asked, her crystalline features reflecting curiosity. "Your technology could make you the new empire." Rebecca smiled, remembering a similar question she'd asked her own grandmother long ago. She gestured to the massive display behind them, showing children on a beach building a sandcastle. "Watch," she instructed. The footage played. The children constructed an elaborate castle. A wave destroyed it, and without hesitation, they began rebuilding. This is humanity's greatest lesson. Persistence isn't just about achieving goals, it's about maintaining them. In orbit, the combined fleet conducted training exercises. Ships crewed by multiple species practiced maneuvers that merged their different approaches to space combat. Human unpredictability blended with Nexari precision, Volov strategic analysis, and dozens of other tactical doctrines. Contact on long-range sensors, a bridge officer reported. Unknown configuration. Captain Sarah Reynolds, daughter of the legendary Major Jack Reynolds, who'd first used drilling equipment against Kralik bases, calmly assessed the situation. First contact protocol Alpha. Let's show them how the galaxy greets neighbors now. The unknown ship approached cautiously, its sensors detecting the overwhelming power of the coalition fleet. They expected aggression, demands, perhaps threats. Instead, they received a transmission in their own language. "Welcome to protected space. We come in peace and offer friendship." Back in the coalition headquarters, Thomas reviewed reports from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Former Kraliks council members, working alongside their former subjects, documented the mistakes of the past to prevent their repetition. "The humans surprised us twice," one Kraliks historian admitted. "First by surviving our attack, then by not becoming what we were after their victory." In the ship graveyard orbiting Jupiter, engineers from 20 species studied decommissioned Kraliks warships. Not to copy their weapons, but to understand their flaws, the rigid thinking that had made them vulnerable to human innovation. The Kraliks built perfect machines, an engineering instructor explained to her students. Humanity taught them to evolve. A quantum communication interrupted Thomas's work. A newly discovered civilization had launched its first faster-than-light test flight. As per coalition protocol, a human-led first contact team would greet them. "Send the standard welcome package," he ordered, "and make sure they receive the historical records." Those records, maintained in every known language, told the story of Earth's transformation. Not just the war, but what came after. The choice to protect rather than dominate, to guide rather than rule. In the Great Hall, Rebecca finished her story to the Nexari child. The Kraliks thought giving humans advanced technology would make us forget our nature. Instead, it gave us the tools to become what we always wanted to be. Protectors of those who needed protection, teachers for those willing to learn. She pointed to Vextal's warning, inscribed in shimmering letters above the hall. "Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever." "But that's only half the lesson," she explained. "The important part is what we do after the hunting stops. Anyone can win a war. Building peace, protecting others, teaching wisdom instead of fear. That's the true test of civilization. The Nexari child looked at the Earth display again, watching the children rebuild their sandcastle. So humans persist not just in fighting, but in protecting. Exactly, Rebecca smiled. The Krillix taught us we could reach the stars. We taught the galaxy we could do it without losing our humanity. That's worth persisting for. Above them, the Coalition fleet maintained its eternal watch, ready to greet new friends or face new threats. Humanity had kept its promise, not just to defeat an empire, but to replace it with something better. Something worth preserving, worth teaching, worth passing on to every new species that looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them.